I had only been in ADX Florence for 3 weeks when the shadows in my cell finally moved. At first, I thought it was my mind breaking. That happens here. Everyone knows it. 23 hours alone in a concrete box the size of a bathroom, with nothing but steel, silence, and your own heartbeat. It changes a man. It bends him. Sometimes it snaps him. But that night, I swear the shadow in the corner stretched, lifted, and shaped itself into something human. I froze on my bunk. My breath stopped. My skin felt like ice. The shadow stood taller, clearer, like it had been waiting for me to look at it. Then it whispered my name. Michael. The voice was low and cold, like it came through metal walls. The kind of voice you don't forget. The kind that slides inside your mind and stays. I pressed my back against the concrete, staring at the dark shape. How do you know my name? I whispered back. I tried to sound brave, but my voice shook. The shadow moved again, slow, smooth, impossible. And then I heard something even worse. A click, coming from inside the vent that was supposed to be welded shut. I leaned forward, trying to see through the darkness. And right as I did, a hand pushed through the vent's steel bars. A real hand. Flesh. Bone. Fingers. My heart slammed inside my chest. No inmate was supposed to reach another inmate. Not in ADX. Not ever. Every man here was locked behind triple steel, with no chance of touching anyone. But the hand kept coming, stretching through the bars like the metal wasn't strong enough to stop it. A voice hissed. They lied to you, Michael. I stumbled backward until my spine hit concrete. What do you want? The voice lowered to a whisper. Do you want to live? Then listen carefully, because this prison isn't what you think. I swallowed hard. My whole body trembled. What do you mean? A pause. A breath. A truth I wasn't ready for. ADX Florence was never built to keep us locked in. The hand gripped the vent harder. It was built to keep something else from getting out. Before I could speak, alarms exploded in the hallway, sirens screaming, red lights flashing, boots pounding toward my cell. The hand slid back into the darkness instantly, and the shadow vanished like smoke. I stood alone, shaking, staring at the vent. And then, my cell door slider snapped open. No one's slider opens early. Not ever. Something was wrong. Something was coming. And I knew I wasn't supposed to see it. Then a guard yelled my name, panicked, and everything that happened next changed the entire story of ADX Florence forever. End of intro cliffhanger. The real story began long before the shadows ever moved, before the whisper in the vent, before the night everything inside ADX Florence broke open. I arrived at the prison on a cold morning in January. The sky was gray, and the wind blew across the empty hills of Colorado. Guards didn't talk much when they brought you in. They didn't need to. Their faces said everything. This place will break you. They said ADX Florence was the safest prison ever built. They called it the Alcatraz of the Rockies. But as I stepped out of the van, I understood the real name. The cage of steel and shadows. A place built out of fear. A place full of ghosts, not the dead kind, but the kind made from broken men. When they marched me down the hallway, I felt every eye watching me from behind steel doors. Some men screamed. Some whispered. Some laughed like they didn't even live in their own minds anymore. That was my first taste of the horrors they didn't tell you. The walls weren't silent. They spoke. And every voice said the same thing. You don't come out the same. I was placed in D unit. Single cell. Concrete everything. Even the bed was concrete with a thin pad on top. The sink and toilet were steel. The window was a slot cut so small you could only see a strip of sky. 23 hours a day alone. 1 hour outside in a cage. No real human contact. That first week, I tried to count the cracks in the walls, like maybe it would help the days pass faster. But the silence was loud. My heartbeat sounded like footsteps. My thoughts felt like voices. Sometimes I swore I heard whispers down the vents, but the guards said the vents didn't connect to anyone. They lied. On my 6th day, something strange happened. Someone tapped twice from the other side of my wall. It was soft, but clear, like a code. Tap. Tap. I froze. No one should be able to get close enough to tap on another inmate's wall. I tapped back. Nothing. Then later that night, I heard a voice. Not from the hall. Not from outside. But from my vent. Soft. Slow. Familiar. You're new. I jumped up and stared at the vent. Who's there? I whispered. A low chuckle answered. Someone who's been here too long. I backed away from the vent. My hands shook. You can't talk through that, I said. They said the vents are sealed. More laughter. They tell you many things here, Michael. None of them true. I felt my chest tighten. How do you know my name? Silence. Then. I know more than your name. I know why they brought you here. I know what they want, and it isn't justice. My heart pounded. Tell me who you are. The voice grew colder. I am the only one in this place who still knows the truth. A pause. And you're the only one they haven't broken yet. That night was the moment ADX Florence changed for me. I realized the prison wasn't just a cage. It was a giant machine, and we were inside it, watching, listening, studying. Whatever lived in the shadows wasn't just another inmate. It knew things, secrets, things no one should know. 2 days later, guards dragged a man screaming down the hall. He begged them not to take him to the basement. He said something lived down there, something that watched him at night. The guards didn't answer. They just dragged him until his voice faded into the distance. None of the inmates spoke for hours after. That was the first time I felt real fear. Not the fear of being trapped. Not the fear of being forgotten. But the fear of not being alone. One night after that, I woke to the sound of metal bending, like steel being pushed from the inside. I sat up on my bunk and stared at the vent. At first, it was silent. Then the shadow formed. Slow, tall, human-shaped. And the voice whispered my name again. That leads us back to the moment everything in ADX Florence broke. The alarms. The flashing red lights. The hand pulling back into the darkness. And my cell door slider snapping open early. That had never happened before. Not for me. Not for anyone. I felt my chest tighten as I stepped toward the door. Outside in the hallway, guards were running, shouting, like something had gone terribly wrong. One of them skidded to a stop in front of my cell, panting hard, sweat dripping down his face. "Turner," he shouted. "Back away from the door." His eyes looked terrified. Not angry. Not annoyed. Terrified. Did you see it?" he breathed. I froze. "See what?" He swallowed hard. "The thing inside your vent." My blood ran cold. You know about it." He nodded once, slow, like admitting it could cost him his life. Then he said something that turned my stomach to ice. "It's loose." "What's loose?" I whispered. The guard looked over his shoulder, his voice shaking. "That thing isn't a prisoner." He grabbed my arm, yanked me forward, and said, "We have to move. Now." I barely had time to breathe. "What's happening?" His voice cracked when he answered. "The shadows, they are not shadows anymore." He stepped backward, raising his flashlight, his face pale. "It's coming." And then, a scream echoed through the hallway. Long, sharp, not human. We both turned. And what I saw at the end of that hallway. The scream at the end of the hallway didn't sound like anything a human throat could make. It was too sharp, too long, too cold. The sound crawled across the concrete like icy fingers, shaking through every bone in my body. The guard beside me, Officer Harris, jerked backward, almost dropping his flashlight. "Oh God, it's closer than I thought," he said, his voice cracking. I stared at him, confused and terrified. "What is it? Tell me what's happening." Harris swallowed hard, his eyes locked on the far end of the hallway. "There's no time. Move." He grabbed my shirt and pulled me into the hallway. I stumbled, still dizzy and shaken from the alarms, the yelling, the shadow in my vent, whatever that thing was. The lights flickered above us. Red, then white, then red again. The whole prison shook with another alarm, deeper this time, almost like it came from underground. Harris kept pushing me forward. "We need to reach the secure wing," he said. "They'll lock it down soon." I looked over my shoulder. Something moved in the darkness. Just a flicker. A shape. Tall. Wrong. Too smooth. Then it vanished. "Harris, something's following us." "I know," he whispered, and his voice broke. "Just don't look back." But I did. And I wish I hadn't. Because for a split second, the lights flashed white, and I saw it clearly. A shadow with a body. Its limbs were too long, bending at angles no human could bend. Its head tilted sideways, almost studying me, even from a distance. And where its face should have been, there was nothing. Just blackness, like someone cut a hole in the world. The lights flickered again. Then it was gone. I stumbled, my voice barely working. What is that thing?" It was inside my vent. Harris didn't answer. His silence was worse than the scream. We sprinted past empty cells, their metal doors sealed shut. But behind some of them, I heard whispers. Quiet. Fast. Terrified. He saw it. They opened his door. It got out. They can't stop it. My stomach twisted. Every inmate knew something I didn't. Something they had lived with longer. We turned into another hallway, this one darker, colder, like the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Harris checked corners fast, breathing hard. We're not alone, he muttered. No kidding. I snapped, fear making my voice shake. You said it's not a prisoner. Then what is it? Harris kept moving, but I could tell he was fighting panic. Something that wasn't supposed to wake up, he whispered. Something they found. Found where? Another scream ripped through the prison. Much closer. Harris flinched violently. Not now, Turner. Just keep your head down and move. I opened my mouth to demand answers, but then, the lights went out. Pitch black. Absolute darkness. I froze. Harris. I whispered. No answer. Harris. Still nothing. My heart hammered so hard my ribs hurt. Darkness in ADX wasn't normal. This place had backup systems on backup systems. Lights weren't supposed to go out. Ever. Then, I heard breathing. Not mine. Not human. Slow. Wet. Like something dragging air through a throat that wasn't meant for breathing. I stood perfectly still. My voice was barely a whisper. Harris, please tell me that's you. A hand grabbed mine. I almost screamed. But then a flashlight snapped on, blinding me. Harris stood in front of me, pale, shaking, his uniform drenched in sweat. Don't talk, he whispered. We need to get out of this hallway right now. What happened? Where did you go? I didn't leave. The lights killed the cameras. It always does. It's how that thing moves. I stared at him. Moves? What do you mean moves? It walked out of my vent. He shook his head. It doesn't walk. Not like us. It travels through places we can't go. His flashlight jittered in his hand. He was terrified, and guards didn't get terrified here. We kept moving, turning down another corridor. Thick steel doors lined the walls. Red lights flashed over us, painting everything blood-colored. What is ADX hiding? I whispered. Why is something like that inside a prison? Harris pressed a hand to my shoulder, stopping me. You want the truth, he said, breath shaking. They didn't build ADX Florence to hold prisoners. He looked around, making sure nothing moved in the shadows. They built it to hold one thing. My chest tightened, and it's the only inmate that has never been on record. A loud, heavy bang echoed behind us. Then another. Closer. And another. Harris yanked me forward again. We're out of time. Just keep running. We reached a heavy metal door. Harris typed in a code fast with trembling hands. The door buzzed, and then something slammed into it from the other side. The door jolted. Harris jumped back. What was that? I yelled. He didn't answer. Slam. The door bent inward. Steel buckled. Slam. A dent formed the size of a fist. But the fist wasn't human-shaped. Slam. Another dent. Harris grabbed my arm. Move back, move. We stumbled backward as the door bent again. And then, suddenly, the hallway went dead silent. No alarms. No footsteps. No breathing. Just silence. Harris raised his flashlight slowly. Turner, he whispered, don't make a sound. The door clicked. Then it clicked again. Whatever was on the other side was unlocking it. From the wrong side. No, Harris breathed, stepping backward. That shouldn't even be possible. The lock slid open with a soft metal clang. The door eased forward. And as it opened, just an inch, cold air poured out like fog. Something stepped into view. A shadow. But this time, not far away. This time, only feet from us. Its head lifted slow, like it was smelling the air, tasting us, choosing. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Then, the creature stepped fully into the hallway. Harris shoved me aside. Run. But I didn't run, because the shadow turned its head toward me, and whispered my name again. Michael. My knees went weak. It remembered me. From the vent. From the whispers. From the cell. And it wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was real. Too real. My throat tightened. My voice barely escaped. What do you want from me? The creature tilted its head in a slow, unnatural movement, and the air around us seemed to freeze. Then it whispered. You are the last one. The last what? The last who? Before I could ask, the floor beneath us trembled. Then the ceiling groaned. A loud cracking sound shook the hallway. Harris's eyes widened. It's coming down. Move. He grabbed my arm and pulled me just as the ceiling burst apart behind us, sending steel and concrete crashing down. Dust filled the air. Lights shattered. The hallway roared like an earthquake as chunks of concrete slammed into the ground where we had been standing seconds before. The creature vanished in the chaos. But I wasn't relieved, because I heard its whisper again in the dust. This prison cannot hold us forever. The hallway shook again. Harris coughed, pulling me through the smoke. We're not safe here, he shouted. It's collapsing the whole wing. I grabbed his arm. Harris, tell me, what am I the last of? He stared at me with terrified eyes. The last inmate it hasn't broken, he said. The last mind it can still take. They kept you alive for one reason. What reason? Harris swallowed hard. It wants you. Before I could respond, another explosion shook the hallway, and something huge, heavy, and fast tore through the dust toward us. I turned just in time to see a massive steel beam falling straight toward my head.